What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Weekly Dose of Dano TV with your host here, Dano, giving you the best content that you're going to find on the internet. You already know. So thank you so much for being with us here live or on the replay from wherever you're watching. We appreciate you so much. And we have, whoa, that is not Rico No Suave. That is Mistilei. I have to change that from the background as well. But you already know Mistilei has been here. This is her fourth appearance, just because she's so full of great energy and wonderful light. Misti, what do you have to say to the Positivity Posse before we get started?
I say that sometimes you got to do what you got to do to get the things done you need to get done. So here I am live and on the internet with you today. Thanks so much, Dano, for having me back.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming back on. And to my Positivity Posse, please light it up, put a heart, a fire, whatever you have to do to welcome Mistilei back onto the show and to be here in the present with us as we're going to talk about more great topics about writing, changing your story, how to use your story to be more empowering and how you can use it to serve you, and all different kinds of funs and, different laughter that we're going to have along the way. So everybody, let's get it. It's time for another episode of Weekly Dose of Dano TV. Let's get it, everybody.
What we do is very interactive, but very powerful because, look, I was an educator for 30 years. I don't believe in just academic education. The lack of character education, which is what we do, changes a culture, and it doesn't take 3 months or 3 years to do it.
We are the guys that come in that will teach these kids everything that they need in order to really be the best version of themselves and to get the skills to succeed in life, no matter what life throws at them. Let's get it. Thank you so much for being here. You know that we have to spend some time really quick, me and the Positivity Posse, before we bring Misti on to talk about all of her great ideas, just suggestions, motivational pieces, golden nuggets, everything that she's going to give us to really help unlock our story and to how to turn that story and put it on paper, ebooks, or whatever it is that we need to do to help anybody that might be going through whatever it is that we have been going through, but have, recently come out of. Because our story is helping the next person. And even though you may not see right now why you're going through whatever it is that you're going through, just know that it is there for the sole purpose of helping yourself and learning, elevating your soul to get to that next level, or to learn whatever lesson it is that you're supposed to learn. Or you can take that life experience and help somebody that might be going through the same thing that you're going through. So you can be an authority on the topic, or just to really go out there and to, like I said, help the next person. And you may not even be going through the same exact thing that you're going through, but you can use that as fuel and motivation to inspire others along their journey as well. So, we have to spend this time together. And I wanted to talk about one quick TikTok that I saw earlier while I was scrolling. And I saw this TikTok at first, and it was a little bit confusing, but, it's interesting that I wanted to it got a lot of attention and a lot of views on it. But I wanted to put my spin to it because I don't think that it's quite entirely accurate, but, it's close enough. And I'll tell you why I think that is. And let me know your opinion. I might be absolutely wrong. And you're like, oh, well, that person's actually right. please leave it in the comments if you're watching on YouTube or on Facebook, because I want to hear all about your ideas, your way of life, the way that you view life, and all that great stuff as well. So who knows? I might be the one that's in the wrong. I don't think I am, but you know, we'll see about that. So Jeanette, thank you so much for dropping the hashtag Positivity Posse and saying hello to all the beautiful souls that are watching this television program. This this is great content, right? So all right, let's get right into it as well. Sorry, zoomed in by mistake. Let's present here and show this. So this is a slideshow. So I'm gonna mute it while I'm talking over it. But like I said, let me know what you guys think as well. So here it is. All right, so let's start with this first slide right here. So when I first opened this up, it said, boom, right here. So it says seeking a positive experience is a negative experience. So you're gonna have to bear with me here because I don't think I'm able to open up this entire screen. So you're gonna have to see everything that's going on the side. I don't look at anything inappropriate anyway, so there's nothing that you guys have to worry about. But all right, so let's talk about this. So it says seeking a positive experience is a negative experience. So when I first heard that, I said, huh? Like that's kind of, you know, contradictory to what, you know, everything kind of what I talk about, but just everything that I've learned. So it says accepting a negative experience is a positive experience. Okay, I believe that 100%. Then it says, this is the paradox of acceptance. You only search for a positive experience because you internally believe that you are already having one. Yes, that is true. I agree. And I just want to go through the whole entire slides first, and then I'll really nitpick as to why this isn't correct 100%. So this part is, yes, you only search for positive experience because you internally believe you're not already having one. Searching for something is an affirmation that you haven't found that thing. Never search for happiness, never search for fulfillment, never search for completeness, never search for company, never search for riches, for you already have them all. Searching is a symptom of the misunderstanding of absolute abundance. You do not search for love. Do not search for love either. Search for the blockage you have placed between you and it. Limitation is man's creation. Now, there are some parts to this that are true. Let me just I'm going to leave this on the screen, but I just want to put myself a little bit bigger than that. Let's see. I believe it's this one. Yeah. So like I said, this is somewhat true. And for some of the things that they have said, all right, I'll explain why only some of it is true. And here it is. So if we look at the beginning, right? If we look at the first slide that they use, if you look at the exact words, it says seeking is a positive experience. Seeking a positive experience is a negative experience. Well, I wish they were to keep the terminology the same, because yes, when you do seek for something that is already outside of you, you are searching for that because you have an absence of it on the inside. And that's, you know, that is true. But when they change the wording around, this is where things get a little hairy. Then it says accepting a negative experience is a positive experience. So when you accept something right here, that's totally different from seeking, right? So when I saw this, it was like, well, now you're sending mixed messages, because somebody that is seeking it is because they don't have it, but somebody that is accepting it is taking responsibility for it. And ultimately, we are imbuing a positive meaning to a meaningless world, right? And that is ultimately, I'm just going to stop sharing that because I can talk about that for hours and hours. But that is what we need to understand. Fundamentally, life is meaningless. There is no built-in meaning to life. Anything that happens is happening, and it is just as it is. But it's up to us to imbue that positive outcome of what we are supposed to get from whatever it is that we're supposed to get, right? Because if you can assign a negative meaning to everything in this world, right? Which is something that a lot of people do. You have somebody that's giving out millions of dollars to, you know, fight homelessness or to end world hunger. But a lot of people put a negative connotation on that, or a negative meaning to it. And that's exactly what they receive from that experience, even though they have nothing to do with it. And honestly, they should just mind their business and focus on themselves. That is what they intend to get from it, right? But if somebody, conversely, if somebody puts a positive meaning on an experience that can be negative, well, that is only what they're going to receive more of. They're going to learn the life lessons that they're supposed to get while going through that experience. And ultimately, it gives you just extra fuel and motivation. And just that little bit of a difference in assigning that positive meaning is you will see that more in the world than not, right? Because everything in this world that you experience and that you see, you'll start to see the beauty that goes along with assigning a positive meaning into that experience as well. So thank you guys so much for being here. And that's how I wanted to start off the episode, because I saw that and I was like, all right, well, on one slide you're talking about accepting, and the next slide you're talking about seeking, which are two different pieces to the puzzle. So and there was one more thing too in here that it's just, it really threw me for a loop. And it was let's see, I don't know. It doesn't matter, because right now Mistilei is coming on to talk about her upcoming book, which your boy is in it as well, and I'm super excited to be in here. But we have a lot to talk about with what goes on into writing, how to edit, and where to even begin, because I know that's one of the things that I kind of need help with, and Mistilei is going to come on to talk about that. And it's not just about me as well. If you're in that space as well, if you don't know where to start, if you need help cultivating your story or just examining and how, if you even have a story, which everybody does, but if you don't know that, Mistilei is coming on here to tell us about all the great things that we need to know around this topic as well. So like I said, put some fire emojis, some hearts, whatever you got to do to welcome Mistilei onto the show, because she's here and she's about to give us a wealth, a gold mine of golden nuggets for us to take. Welcome Mistilei onto the show. Mistilei.
Hey.
Thank you so much for being on here. What did you think about that slideshow?
I love that. And you and I could do a whole show on that. And I do agree that it's just the meaning that we assign it. So if you start assigning positive and negative, you're inviting more negative. And if we just, one of my favorite mentors says, life is always happening for us. And if we just can remember that, then there is no negative. It's all perfect right now. And I've been through some things that people might judge as not being perfect, and I had to find the light in them. And so that's how you and I became friends. And I think that's a really important part of it. But I love that you pointed that out. The verbiage gets tricky in the way they presented that.
Yeah, right. I wasn't crazy. I was like, wait, hold on, because I was scrolling through it and I was like, okay, I agree with that. Then the next one was like, no, I don't agree with that. So what is it that that's changing in their messaging? But like you said, it was the verbiage and how we choose our words. And it's so important to really understand that everything that we speak or consume can have an effect on us. So that's how we need to really kind of, what I think we need to do when we're going through life with a fine-tooth comb, what's serving us and what's not serving us. So in the power of our word, that's really a big piece of the puzzle in what you talk about. So let's start right there, because I feel like that's just perfectly, in alignment with what this episode is all about. How can we be conscious of the story that we're telling ourselves? Because just one quick thing, I know of a person that this is happening very recently. I had a discussion with it. I've known him for so long. And this person tends to think that they are, just so positive and they're a beacon of light. But the story that she tells herself and the conversations, that we have, they're just so negative. And it's like, I want to let this person, that's getting a little bit off topic, but how can we I want this person to understand and become more aware of it. So how can we become aware of the story that we're telling ourselves?
Well, my advice, I consider myself a word doula or an author doula. Start lifting this weight right here, pen. Get pen and paper. If you write daily, you'll be able to go back and fact check yourself and see if the stories you're telling to yourself are uplifting, saying, this is what I do want, or are you saying what you don't want? This is what I'm grateful for, or this is what I think is missing in my life. And just using that words that are on paper, you can't forget that you thought that thought when it's on paper. Then you can begin to work that, exercise that muscle to switch those words into that positive, empowering place. And it's very healing when you learn to, the book that we're going to be in, that go within, that good juju of using these muscles that we have right here to train ourselves to find the positive, the grateful, the gratitude, the things that we are impressed by and that we are in love with, and stop focusing on just let that go. And so sometimes when I have someone that's telling, like your friend, telling a story repeatedly, I'm very positive, but, it's not my fault, because when you start catching those things, you can heal through that process of writing down what you do want and imagining with yourself, if this thing that I perceive as less than ideal, if I loved it, what would I be doing? If it was empowering me, what would I be doing? Some of the people in the audience know I lost my son and his father in the past year and a half, and I could perceive that as being very damaging to myself. And of course, it hurt my mama heart, but I also had the opportunity to practice what I teach, pick up this muscle and say, okay, these are my new facts in my life. These people have moved on to a different realm. So how is this going to empower me to be my best self and show up and continue to help humanity heal, which is my passion. And I had to use my own lessons and practice what I teach to rewrite my sentences, because I found myself writing, I can't do this alone. I can't do this without them. And that's not true. Absolutely I can. I just needed to use that muscle and really practice on a daily basis, telling myself how it is going to help me and is going to serve other people, and knowing how proud those two people are of me from wherever they are in the ethers. But it's the daily and consistent muscle building. It's not something you just decide. You can decide it, but you've got to build that muscle. You can't just decide to be skinny and say, oh, well, I'm thinking about going to the gym. At some point, you're going to have to go there and pick up that muscle. And the more you do it, the more you see the benefits of it.
Wow. So beautifully put. And, you know, that those are big things that are happening, that have happened in your life, that, you know, a lot of people are scared of death and, you know, moving on to the next realm or transitioning to wherever it is that we go next. And a lot of people are fearful of that. So you just said yourself that you've learned some things, you know, about yourself along the way when it comes to really sticking to your guns, holding up an imaginary pen right here, right? Because that's your gun. So what are some of the things that you've learned during that process of, you know, grieving and losing the loss of loved ones in your storytelling? Like, have you seen that there's a shift in what you've been writing? Has it enhanced it? What's the process been like?
The biggest shift, and, you know, it's kind of one of those blessings and the curse, if you perceive it that way, is that I realized that when my world fractured, I got to choose what pieces I picked up. The puzzle was all on the floor, but it wasn't all my puzzle pieces. So I was very specific about what I was going to continue on. And you can do this, whether it's sobriety or weight loss. You can decide, what will I continue to let be a part of my life, and what will I let go? What will I continue to let be my because I couldn't do it because. That's an addiction. That story is an addiction. And I can rewrite that story and say, I used to not do that because, but now I'm in control of my life. And therefore, writing a story where your family is supportive, or your family's not supportive, but you find a whole new group that is, for whatever it is you're going through. You can find, and that's, again, going within. If no one is on your side, go within and write the story where everyone you meet from now on is. But in my mind, it took me just looking at everything in my life and everything that I was writing and saying, do you get to come along to the next page? Do you get to come along to the next chapter? Or is this a book I've already read and it's not serving me any longer to continue to read or tell the story?
Wow, I love that too. And, you know, that's one of the things that I do have written down. I actually have it dated. For one of the things that I always try to practice in my daily writing is exactly what you said when it comes to the relationships with other people. And it's that everybody that I meet, it will be, you know, will greet me with loving and interesting energy. I mean, not interesting energy, right? Because that could be a little bit not as specific as I want it to be with love. But yeah, it's so really important that we are, you know, taking control of our lives. And like you said, which is such a sweet little piece of it, is avoiding that addiction and trying to avoid what comes after but and because, right? Because obviously those things that come after it are just going to counteract whatever intention it is that you're first writing to begin with. So how did you find that out about writing that but ... because ... and flipping that to make it more empowered?
Well, I noticed it because I found a lot of old journals. When I moved, I was packing up a lot of old notebooks, and they each had about 10 to 15 pages written in them of what I didn't like that was going on in my life. And then about the time my life would turn around, I quit writing. So I noticed it was very apparent through all these notebooks that I was only using that muscle until I got back to baseline, but I was never using it to excel and to level myself up. So I thought, well, let's just keep going. Let's just keep writing it. And I went back through my notebooks and I saw where I say, well, I wish I could do this, but I can't because. And if that next sentence wasn't empowering, I would just literally circle it in my notebook and then go back and rewrite it from an empowering statement, because it really is an exercise. You have to train yourself to think differently. And society is very lenient on us for using those excuses. Like right now, I could say, well, I can't do that because I lost my son. And most people would say, oh, honey, you're right. Just take your time. But I needed to be the one to say, I absolutely can do this because he trained me to be a warrior. I can do this because I have a new plate. Like, make sure that because is a very empowering and stronghold rather than a limitation, and keep rewriting it. And sometimes you don't have it in you. So I want to give anyone who's out there going, that's easy for you to say. If you can't come up with the because that's empowering, simply come up with anything you're grateful for in this moment, whether it's a blue sky, a cloud, the temperature in your bedroom, your pillow. Any moments of gratitude will begin to turn your radio dial back to that station of gratitude. And as you get tuned in, then you can hear your song beginning to play, and you can kind of play with the knobs to get exactly into that channel and that frequency of gratitude. Once you feel that, then it's so much easier to come back to it every day and go, today I had a day that was very challenging, and I'm grateful for my sandwich, and I'm grateful for the water I got to drink. Just dig deep for anything, and that helps your mind go, I know the muscle we're building now. I remember this muscle. So when times are tough, give yourself a little leniency, but stay in that pool of gratitude rather in the because I can't.
Yeah, and that's like you said. You just mentioned that with the person that's watching this, if they're saying, "Oh, well, that's easy for you to say," well, that's the same kind of thing as the excuses as the but and the because, right? Because you're using that as an excuse to say to wherever it is that you're at right now, and if you're at that spot where you want to be, then that's fine. You're more than welcome to stay there. But if you're not, and you're looking for those ways to expand, Mistilei said it right there best, and Lou agrees right here. Lou says, great advice, 100%. And I just want to mention one more thing before we hear the first word from our sponsor. But if you I'm saying this but in a good way, don't beat me up, Misty. But if you are in the spot where you just are absolutely in a rut, or you're just absolutely depressed, or you just think that there is nowhere else to go, then you might want to write about the things that you don't like in your life, right? Because you can use that as a way of, number one, recognizing what's not going right, and then number two, that recognition. Sorry, I couldn't find the word. That recognition might be a little bit better on the vibrational chart than just absolutely being at the baseline, right? Because as we all know, Misty, you've seen this picture before, and I want to share it again. Right here, if we look at the bottom, if you're at that guilt or you're at that shame, and when you actually start to write, if you bring yourself a little bit up to that anger or that fear, we see that that's a little bit better on the vibrational chart, and that makes it easier to get to that place of love and acceptance and enlightenment. So it may not always be a bad thing. And Misty, I know you've talked about it before, where you can write your anger out, and even though you're writing that anger, that still might be a little bit better than being at that wavelength of being depressed or guilty or shame. Misty, do you agree with that?
Yeah, and I would say there's a huge difference between, I even start my journals in real life. I might say, in real life, I'm missing my children today. I'm missing my grandchildren today. That's an in real life statement. Then I'll say, I remember the time, or I look forward to a time, and I bring it back to a positive feeling. Now, that's very different than me saying, writing a story about missing my children. I miss my children. They never call me. They only call me if they want it. That's putting a story down, and that's really diving deeper and deeper down that funnel of emotion. I have an author that I've worked with, and she's got a really great book, Reverse Coloring, and it's Emotional Canvas. And she'll say, before you begin, what are you feeling now? What would you like to be feeling? And what's one thing you could do that would be a step towards that feeling? And it's just a real quick exercise to help you get out of that story, because it's those emotions are very, very heavy and very sticky, like Velcro. So you have to intentionally fill that void to get up to those really beautiful high-end emotions that you showed.
Beautiful. So there it is. If you're in that position, we're giving you all the golden nuggets that you need. And stick around too to hear about the upcoming books that Mistilei and I will be in. And then also just, about former authors that she's helped, or if you just want to stick around for the positive, good energy, then we are more than welcoming, and we are inviting you to stay here for the rest of the episode as well. So we're going to hear a first word from our sponsor, and we'll be right back after a word from It Takes a Village Housing.
Takes a village about keeping our families together.
God bless this organization.
Everybody, that was a word from It Takes a Village Housing, and keep your eyes peeled because I believe they have a fresh and upcoming commercial for us here on Weekly Dose of Dano TV. So a big shout out to It Takes a Village Housing and sending you guys all the positive energy that you need as well, because they are doing some big things and they need all of our positive energy as well. So big shout out to you guys. Thank you to It Takes a Village Housing as well. So Mistilei, we have a lot to talk about because we have started to dive in or get our feet wet a little bit about this new up and coming book that we're going to be releasing. So tell everybody a little bit about it, what we can expect, and a little bit about the book.
Well, I started anthologies a couple of years ago. There are collections of short stories so that there's a chapter for every reader, and I thought I wasn't going to do them anymore after my son passed, but as time has gone on and I've had some moments to heal, I realized there's a value into sharing these stories, and we've got one coming out in November called My Good Juju, and it's really about the magic and wonderful things that we can accomplish when we go within. So it's not necessarily about buying another course or another class or anything like that. It's about getting in touch with yourself, and the easiest and free way to do that, again, is by lifting this muscle every day, because you begin to tell your story a little bit different when you're healed. And so sometimes I call myself the author and word doula. Sometimes people will write with me because they have something they are attempting to heal from. And so we'll work together to rewrite the story until it becomes empowering to them. And then the ones that we think will serve others, we go ahead and publish and put out to the world. So the one that you're going to be in with me, which, by the way, thank you. I'm so excited that you're going to be on board this time. It's called My Good Juju. And it's about my chapter is really about when my puzzle pieces fell on the ground and deciding which ones belonged to me and which ones I had allowed to call mine based on society or family or any other stories that I carried with me that weren't serving me anymore. So it's really about finding the stories that serve you and releasing the stories that don't, and the practice of writing that into a chapter that serves other people. I love the experience. I love watching people step into that role of author and I have a creature flying around, serving other people. So our book, My Good Juju, in November, that's what it'll do. And I'm here to help them with I know you talked about some of the ins and outs of publishing. A lot of people never tell their story publicly because they don't know how. That's their because. I would, but I can't because I don't know how, or because I don't have enough money, or because it's too expensive. And those are stories that are no longer serving most of us. With the internet and Amazon and some of the other services for publishing that have come out now, there really is no because other than if you don't want to. So being able to tell your story has become affordable and something that most people can reach and entertain. They might just need an author doula to walk beside them. I don't know who's flying around my head. I apologize for they might need an author doula just to walk beside them. So if they get that kind of uncomfortable feeling, they can just reach out and say, can you reassure me that I'm on the right path? And that's what I do, is I make sure that they're edited, they're formatted, and that the book comes out and be really nicely wrapped so that when we serve it to the audience, we serve it to all the readers, it's in a way that they can intake it, digest it, and decide what stories are serving them. And then they can release the stories that are not serving them any longer.
Wow. I'm excited to be a part of it too. I think I told you this, but I have something in the archive as well where it's like an ebook that I created to help people with, overcome limiting beliefs. But when it comes to being a part of this, number one, I'm super excited, honored, and grateful that you thought about me. So thank you so much for that. But I have so many different topics or ideas, and it's kind of like all coming in at once. So I'm kind of like, I kind of have a little bit of paralysis on what to start out with. So I know we're supposed to have our call tomorrow, and that's kind of our way of, helping me to, mentor me along the way and to make sure that we actually get this published. So how do I know which topic out of all the ones that have flown into my mind, how do I know which one is supposed to be for this project? Or maybe you want to take it a little bit broader. If somebody that's out there that's watching, if they have that same problem with choosing many topics, how do we lock in on that one that we're like, yes, this is absolutely it?
That's a great question. And the short version is you'll know it when you write it. Usually most of us go through several ideas and we put them on paper because we need to. Our human needs to express that. And then when you're finished, you feel like, oh, I'm done with that. Like that's not what I don't want to write about my ex-boyfriend. I just needed to get that off my chest. So you'll notice when you come out of the venting stage and into the service stage for most people that they feel like this is really going to serve other people rather than venting about something that you don't prefer in your life. So that's one way that we look for it. And then as your editor, I'm also reading to make sure that you're not venting, that you're not saying, putting blame on other people. And sometimes I'll say, why don't you rewrite that in the first person and see if it still resonates with you? Because we want our readers to be able to read it and say, oh, I see where he was going with that. I see how she was feeling at that time. And we don't want them sitting there trying to decide who was guilty, him or her, or, who had the story worse. And it's not a competition of trauma. And one example is you could have been through 20 years of a very traumatic life for various reasons. But there's no reason to go through those details once you're healed. You can simply sum all those 20 years in a sentence that says, after 20 years of trauma, I decided I needed to change. And that's when you know you're onto that story that's going to serve others rather than having to go through all the details of, then this bad thing happened, then this bad thing happened. Because that's still you processing how you feel about what's happening in your life. And so I say, write it all down, and you'll begin to see right away, oh, I'm just having a little fit. I'm just mad about this still. But once you start to see how it's going to serve others, and you can imagine, I imagine a woman reading these stories and going, I'm not alone. I'm not alone, and there is hope. And so when my chapters give hope, connection, and direction, I know that's the one that I want to use for my books.
That's beautiful. I mean, you kind of the entire answer was on point, and I loved it. But like you said, what'd you say? Hope, direction, and what was the last one?
Hope, connection, and direction. Those are the three. I want them to know that at that bottom of that emotional scale, you can always come back up. So that's your hope. And then direction is sometimes just when you say, I don't know how to do that, Misty, that's easy for you. Here's some direction. Try this on. This worked for me. This has worked for a lot of my friends. And then connection, just knowing you're not alone out there. I feel this way. This is a little bit digression, but it's an example. I've lost 140 pounds, but a lot of people don't know that about me anymore. And so I've had people say, well, you don't even understand because you're not big. And it's because I don't tell that story anymore of being overweight. But for a long time, that was my story, the girl who was overweight. So the more you heal from it, the shorter the trauma story becomes and the greater the comeback story becomes. And I think that's where the magic happens.
Wow. I love that too. And you know what's really great about that is like you said, the connection piece. And I think that's everything that we do. We are of service to other people and everything that we do. And Mistilei, I know that all of the stuff that you talked about and you will continue to talk about, your stuff. You've been doing this for so many years. And have you, for somebody that might be interested in working with you in the future, I want you to toot your own horn a little bit. Can you talk about any special awards or, from an author that you've maybe helped before in the past? Like, what has been some of the things that they have achieved from working with you?
Okay, well, so depending on which direction you go, from a business standpoint, some of my authors have gone on. They'll start with me with a short chapter, then they'll do a solo book. And then there's a woman named Amy Joy who went on to do her television show, just building from that. A lot of people will use their chapters as a way to just step into that. I'm ready to be seen. I'm ready to be heard. So it gives them a sense of pride that they may not have had before. Then On a personal note, our books hit #1 most of the time. We hit bestseller almost every time and #1 new release almost every time. So I'm very proud of how my authors really step up and embrace what we're doing to help other people. And I think that's what gives you that #1 book, is when you've got something that other people can look at and go, we're not trying to trauma bond with you. We're not trying to have exclusivity and my problem's bigger. We are really here as a sisterhood, as a family of humans, men and women together. We're here to really bond and bring everyone up. That's that rising tide raises all ships kind of thing. These stories raise all of us up. Even if you're not going through what I'm going through, there'll be enough in it that you can connect and go, if that ever happens to me, I've got that seed in the back of my head. And that's what's really powerful. And it has helped me, actually. I helped a lot of women who had lost children at our grieving campground. I run a nonprofit grieving space. And when my own son passed, it was just like playing back through my head of all the things they had shared with me that I wasn't going through them at the time, but I was able to learn through their positivity and say, you know what, panic is not appropriate here, because I know what worked. I know what will empower me. And that's really what we're looking for in our books. I think that energy that we bring to it really makes the powerful pieces that we are able to publish.
100%. And, you just brought it up kind of passingly, but you talked about, the authors that first start out in the beginning and, they're really not sure what they want to write about, or, they want to do the trauma bond and they're writing about things that they don't even want to talk about, or victim blame and all that good stuff. Can you tell us about the #1 most interesting transformation that you've seen one of your authors that you've helped go from, maybe they might have been complete, like they didn't even know how to write, and then you taught them how to write, and now they're a best-selling author. What's been the most interesting transformation that you've seen in your author?
Yeah, actually, the first person that comes to mind is a woman named Kenya Evelyn. English is not her first language. It's about her 6th language. And when we first met, she wanted to write, but she said, I can't because I don't write in English very well. I don't speak English as well as everyone else. My story is very unusual. So she had all these reasons. And I said, just go ahead and write anyway and trust me. Trust that as your doula, I'm going to make sure we get to the delivery on time and the way that your baby will come out the way that you want. And she did. She put her trust in me. And she's written with me 6 times, 6 #1. And she now she claims the author status. She's very upfront about the fact that she's an author. She found her voice and she's used it in her marriage. She's used it with her children. Her children write. In fact, her 8-year-old daughter may be in our book this coming up. We're not sure. She's working on the idea, because Kenya has realized that all the stories she had as to why she had to keep her story inside were not serving her at all. So she found her voice. She's gone on to put on retreats for women to help them find their voice. And she really hones in on the frequency of gratitude and using your voice to get there. So that's been a very exciting ride to watch her really grow into that space.
Yeah, and I really want everybody to hear about that story, because they, like you said, we kind of make a lot of reasons or excuses as to why something may not happen for us or why we can't do it. But look, somebody who didn't even speak English or write English fluently was still able to achieve a great amount of success in such a short amount of time, with working with Mistilei and believing in her own, power in her story as well. So we're going to hear a word from our second sponsors. And when we come back, I want to hear more about, the things that we can expect to see or read about in this upcoming book, former authors, and everything else in between of all this great, great content. And we're going to hear a word from our sponsor, which is Great Success. And thank you so much to Great Success for sponsoring Weekly Dose of Dano TV.
At Great Success, it's our job to make sure that your child succeeds in school regardless of the subject or grade level. Our tutors are trained professionals who know how to promote learning and encourage results. Whether you are looking for help with SAT, ACT prep, private and group tutoring, K-3 reading programs for your child, or educational consulting and college counseling, here at Great Success, we can help you find the right answer. Visit greatsuccess.com to learn more about our in-person and online program options. Great Success, where your child's success is our business.
huge shout out to Great Success as well. Please reach out to them if your child needs any tutoring services, SAT prep, ACT prep, and everything in between. He is the man. I have seen him train and do live seminars. See, look at that. Just another great dose of positivity just because we're talking about it. So yes, if you need any help with that or your child needs any help with that, please reach out to Great Success as well. And now going back to Mistilei, we have to talk about what it is that you gain from helping everybody, right? Because everything that we do, and I know we fill up everybody else's cup, but what is it that you receive when you decide to help all of these new authors or seasoned authors?
So there comes a place when you get really good at something where it can become comfortable and almost boring. And so publishing a book could become that way. But when I work with each new author, their struggle, their dilemma, their because helps me grow as a publisher, as an author, as an editor, as a word doula. So I really like to find the ones, the authors who think they can't. I love to work with them. And it's, you know, how things are synchronistic. Each person I meet who trusts me enough to move away from the can't and move with me into the can, I grow from that in so many different ways. Not to mention, I've been able to really cultivate some incredible friendships with the authors. One other person I want to give credit to that came to mind, her name is Dana. She's written with me several times, and she was worried because she had some dyslexia and, you know, just some reasons that she felt that she wasn't going to be able to write. And we explained on our first call, she's there to be the author. She's there to create. There's editors in place to help with that. So that's one thing I would like to encourage anyone who's thinking about writing. Don't think about writing the finished draft. You are here to write the rough draft. You are here to just get your thoughts on paper, especially if you're journaling at home. So for me, each new author that I work with helps me grow into how can I help them find their can? How can I help them find their because that is empowering? So it requires that I continue to learn new methods to deal with each new personality, because we all learn just a tiny bit different. So it's not quite as cut and dried as A, you do this, B, you do that, C, you do this. Each person I work with is going to have a little bit different set of circumstances. And that's why I use the word doula, similar to a pregnant mama. We all know that the baby's going to come out, but what the mama needs along the way may be very different. What the daddy needs along the way may be very different. And so that's where I get to continue to grow and find how to meet the needs of each new mind that wants to share with other people.
Yeah, and with your qualifications too, you are the perfect person to do it because you've been in the game for so long and you have the proven track record to do it. So if anybody's watching that may need, you know, an extra push or they have any questions, please reach out to Mistilei directly and she can help you out. Or you can reach out to me and I'll be the connector for you too. You know, I don't mind doing that. And Mistilei, with all of these people that you have helped, there has to be certain qualities that you've seen in each of these people that have helped contribute to their success. So what qualities do you think that are necessary for an author to become successful?
The desire to share in an uplifting way. That really is the only thing that has got to be there. You have to have a desire to be authentic. Let me rephrase. To be authentic and share in a way that will uplift. You can tell very quickly when people stray off their authenticity. And as their editor, I can catch it really quickly when they start. And I'll give you an example. I quit drinking in 2014. The first time I wrote about it, I said, when I quit drinking, you have to be aware you're going to lose friends. Well, that didn't make sense because I changed my verbiage. When I quit drinking, I had to be aware that I was going to lose friends. So I was able to bring back my own strength and take my own power back and share with other people. So when someone has a desire to be authentic and they have a desire to help themselves, A, and others, B, and I know that's a little reversed than how we were taught, but I'm a human too. So I have to help humans, including me. So when I see that in an author, I know they're going to make a fabulous story. I know that their chapter is going to help other people. That's really what I'm looking for, authenticity.
Yeah, and I think that's a big piece to why people want to read something, right? Because I know that if they're reading through BS or nonsense, they're going to be turned off like that. And everything that you went to go do or try to write about or try to sell is going to flop because nobody wants to read nonsense. Nobody wants to read the BS. And then initially, or, you know, in tandem with that is a lot of people want to hear about the real life experiences that you may be going through. And I know that that's probably in some weird way why people love to hear about celebrity gossip so much, right? Because you look at these people and you think that they're all the way up here and that you're down here. And when you hear about the gossip or what's going on in their lives, then you're like, oh, well, see, that's what makes them human. But, you know, that's what everybody wants, is that sense of connection. And, you know, you don't have to always look at the negatives that are going on in their lives. You can use that as a positive as well. All the success and all of the accolades and their fame or their fortune that they have, you are also capable and worthy of deserving and of having those same things as well. So I really love the fact that you said that too. And that's been kind of one of the things that I wasn't sure about, that you just answered for me, is that I don't know who I'm writing to. I'm writing my story, but who's going to read this? And like, who am I writing to? Those are some of the things that happen because we don't have that experience. So with some of these limiting beliefs, or maybe I just mentioned two of them, what have been the top limiting beliefs that you've heard your authors come with, and how did you dispel them or give them the confidence to move forward despite these limiting beliefs?
So the first one that you mentioned, I don't know that anyone's going to read my story. That's the number one that I get. And then I just ask them to write it in a way that they would have wanted to read it had they gotten a hold of that chapter at the beginning of whatever they were writing about. So for example, if I was writing about the loss of a child, what would have helped me on that day? How would I have wanted to connect with that person? And now I'm very woo-woo. So I can actually imagine a woman opening that chapter and just really going, this is what I needed to hear today.
Misty, are you still there?
I am here.
Oh, there you go. All right, cool.
Okay.
It went for half a second, yeah.
Okay. So I know that everyone does want to read something. Now, not everybody wants to read everything. So if we're just writing to the one person out there who may need to hear our one story, that's all that matters. Now, most likely more than one person's going to read it. But truly, if you could save one person from grief, from the lack of will or the lack of desire to be here, that's the only person that we need to read it. If you could have one person make a decision to go ahead and follow their dreams, that's the only person that we needed to read it. The rest are just icing on the cake. And for me, writing is very therapeutic in my soul to write my chapters. And I've had people come back to me and tell me what it did for them. And that is all, the first person who gives you that little accolade is the best. So that's our number one limiting belief. The number two is, I don't know how. And that's not true at all, because that's where you have that second person. You're not in this alone. You're not supposed to write the book, type the book, format the book, edit the book, graphic the book, and put up the book. Now you can, and we, in our process, we teach everyone by immersion how that can be done, but you don't have to start that. And I'll be quick, but my grandson was learning to crawl about a year ago. And I was watching him, and he was genuinely angry and upset, crying these huge tears because he couldn't reach his toy. And he finally reached it, and he laid on his back, and he played with his toy, satisfied. He doesn't know that he is about to walk and then run and then just be free to go everywhere. So when we start that writing process, I just always remind myself, I'm just crawling. Today is crawling. So I may bump my head on the table in my writing. I may get a bruise on my leg in my writing, and then I'll just turn the page and fix it. And so I think that what you were saying about the celebrities, a lot of times we're striving for the end product instead of remembering that we have to begin the process. We have to learn to crawl, then we walk, then we run. We write gibberish, then we edit, then we put out a beautiful story. But we don't just start at the top. And so being willing to begin is the number one limiting belief to get past. And once you get past that, then you're just going. You're going and you can't be stopped unless you want to.
You know, that is the hardest piece that I think a lot of people can come to terms with is how to start. And like you said, you are like I said, and everybody knows, you're the perfect person to do it. So if you're interested, please reach out to Misty. She'll be able to help you out. And you have so much experience that I know when it comes to this release as well, even with all of that experience, you're probably dealing with a lot of pressure or, you know, some of the things that, oh, well, this might happen and this might happen. How do you deal with the pressure of coming out with a new release every single time?
It's always a very fun adrenaline run. Of course, I've gotten better with it over time. I'm not crawling at this phase anymore. I've learned to go through my own steps. So it's less rocky every time. We find new things that, like here I'm in a fast food restaurant. New things come up that get in our way, whether it's internet or technology or something didn't upload on time. And just realizing that panic is just not appropriate. It's not going to serve anything. So just Let the things go. We give our best, we serve at our highest level, and we know that things are going to happen as they're supposed to. Now, for me, I'm spoiled because I work with authors that are very collaborative, that want this to be kind of a family affair. So it's not that I'm having to really like, hey, you're supposed to be here. Most everyone that's here really wants to serve as much as I do, which makes my job very easy.
I hear that, and it's nice that you hand select those type of people that you want to be with, right? Because could you imagine just throwing out a contest and having all these different people that kind of don't follow the same ideology or that same authenticity or positivity? I bet that would make it a lot more stressful. So it's nice that you are able to hand select who you want to work with and who, you know, is able to work with you as well. So I just love that so much. And I have one more question, because I know that we've talked about a lot about writing, but in this new age technologies, I'm sitting right here with a keyboard in front of my face. Do you get the same effects as typing as you do writing, or are they two different things? Or so when I go to type my my chapter, my piece, I'm not able to type it. I have to write it.
So typing to turn in, of course, is always great. I usually tell people write until you get in flow, and then you can go to a computer. But anytime you're in frustration or chaos, or you're feeling like strained in your mind, if you come back to here, there's a lot of science, but it opens up different neural pathways and different creatives if you're using your hand to write more than this does. And that's been proven time and time again. So I will generally start on, I have my notebook right here. I will start in a notebook. And then once I get in the flow, I know the characters, I know where I'm going, then I'll switch over to a laptop, because then it's more business. Then I'm at business. But whenever I'm looking for healing, I'm looking for maybe even venting out some emotions. In real life, this is happening and I'm struggling, and this is what I would like to be happening. Those are really powerful on paper conversations. They're also, you can hold yourself more accountable than backspace, delete, and then that thought is gone. Where in paper you can see, was I being negative? Am I being positive? Am I being uplifting? And it just holds you a little bit more accountable on top of the science that has already been proven time and time again for handwriting. And again, it doesn't matter if you write well. It's about using a different part of your brain to look for an answer to something that you may be struggling with.
100%. And like I said, I just love having you and talking to you to hear about these things. Number one, because I have absolutely no idea what I'm going to be doing, you know, and just having you there as a beacon of light and inspiration, and just to, you know, have a soundboard off of. I appreciate you so much. And I know somebody somewhere, mostly everybody, is receiving all of the great energy that you're throwing out there. And to my positivity posse, I know they gained a lot just from you coming on again as well. So let's wrap it up with one more question. And here it is. As an experienced author, I know that you have done this plenty of times. You helped so many other people do it. But what was the best piece of advice that you have ever received when it comes to the power of writing?
Write like no one's ever going to read it. Write the first draft for your heart, your spirit, your soul. Put all the things in there that you weren't allowed to say. You just get it all out. And even if it's not the most uplifting, you got to let the trash out sometimes. So if you've got a lot of thoughts in your head that might seem ugly or inappropriate, write the first draft with all those icky in them, and then come back and write what you really, really mean and what you really feel. I'm a very positive person. I spend my entire day in a really beautiful place of gratitude, and I have thoughts that are like, oh, that person made me mad. So I want to be able to write that. That person made me so mad, and then come back and go, you know what? I got where I was going on time. I got to the Dano show on time. It's fine. But just letting it out instead of holding it all in, that's my number one. Just write the first one like no one's ever going to read it, and then come back. And the more you do that, the less you'll have any need to even go down that path. But you've got to allow yourself the freedom to know that you have the permission. And that comes back to my grief, you know, when I'm helping people through grief. Say all the mean and ugly things that you want to say, get them out, and then let's come back and be realistic on how we can move forward from here.
There it is, everybody. Mistilei, the great, coming on to talk about everything when it comes to writing, how to process our emotions, and even the upcoming book that everybody can, you know, be excited to hear about and to read in the future. So, Mistilei, what's the name of the book? When can we expect the release date? Give us some extra details about the book coming out.
So the name of the book is My Good Juju, and it will be out November 11th. We do have spots for a few more authors. If somebody would like to join us, they can reach out to me on Facebook or at campgroundtbd@gmail.com if they would like to see if they are ready to stretch into that exercise of writing for public. And you don't have to. You're not locked into it. A lot of people write with me and then don't publish, but we usually get about 30 or 40 authors in the book that will go ahead and publish to serve others. And for those that don't, they're just not there in the healing process, and we hold them for the next book until they are ready. So it's a very comfortable and loving environment, and it'll be out in November, and it's really about everything that's within us. We've got people from the religious side, from the spiritual side, yoga, Reiki, journaling, gratitude, meditation, positivity, affirmation. So it'll show up in a lot of different ways of what you have already in your toolbox. If anything is not exactly as you prefer, how can you handle that situation? And I really believe there's something for everyone in this book already with just the authors that we have. So I look forward to seeing who else is going to be in this book that will provide even more just internal juju that we can share with others.
I believe that I might have somebody as well. You just kind of got the gears going. So just stick around for a little bit, and then I'll be able to talk to you about that. But to my positivity posse, I know you guys are just as excited as I am about this, because this is what we talk about week in and week out on Weekly Dose of Dano TV. But now, if you don't feel like going through past episodes to find exactly what it is that you need, you have it right here all in one place in this book, My Good Juju, that's coming out on November 11th. And it's just great, because not only if you're tired of hearing my voice, which I hope you're not, but you want to hear from somebody else's perspective that might be going through something similar that you're going through that I might not be able to provide for you at the time. It's all going to be here, and Mistilei and everybody else is all coming together to help serve others, but to help you might be that person that we're trying to serve as well. So there it is, everybody. Thank you so much for being here on Weekly Dose of Dano TV. We appreciate you so much. Mistilei, one more time, if somebody wanted to reach out to you just with any further questions, where can they reach you at?
Facebook, Mistilei Wriston, or Campgroundtbd, like campground to be determined at gmail.com. And my nonprofit healing space, which is the beneficiary of our launch day proceeds, is haydensray.org.
There it is, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. Next week, we have David Goodman coming on to the show. I believe it is him. Let me just yes, David Goodman is coming on next week. He is an actor. He's been in a lot of commercials and is also really, really great behind the camera as well. Has a nonprofit called Idea here in the city of Camden. I believe it's a nonprofit. And I'm really excited to hear about all of his things as well. Everybody, keep your eyes peeled for My Good Juju. And we're going to be doing updates and everything as well in the future and revolving around that book. Mistilei, thank you so much for being here. And Lou, I just want to show this. Says, great show as always. Thank you both for your information. Thank you so much for being here. We appreciate you all so much. And we'll see you next week for another episode of Weekly Dose of Dano TV. Peace, everybody. Thank you.